بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Moving forward with the fi'l mudari'. Now up until this point we've covered a good amount of nahu. In nahu we covered the qawl chart in detail, and then beyond the qawl chart we covered phrases, we covered sentences, we covered the jumla ismiya, we covered the jumla fi'liya, and in your previous lesson we also covered pronouns. And the reason we covered pronouns is because pronouns are extremely applicable in the Arabic language. Like you will hardly come across a text without a pronoun within it. And because obviously pronouns take different forms in the Arabic language, as you've covered in the previous lesson, it's extremely important for you to understand how a pronoun will look in different areas, even though a pronoun doesn't reflect its position. I explained this last lesson that in English, interestingly, pronouns take different forms because they have to reflect their position. So you would say he, but you'd also say his, and you'd also say him, based on whether it's playing the role of a subject, or if it's playing the role of a possessor, or if it's playing the role of an object. In Arabic, however, pronouns do take different forms, but those different forms are not a result of reflecting their position. It's just that pronouns are built differently. Some pronouns are built to be attached, other pronouns are built to be unattached. In the fi'l, we taught you that the pronouns you'd handle are attached pronouns. So in the fi'l madi, you covered many different attached pronouns. Today, bi'idhnillah, after having covered the fi'l madi and becoming fluent within it, nasara, nasara, nasaru, I expect everyone as of this point to know the fi'l madi memorized and to be able to translate if asked any random verb. If I ask you what nasaru means, you should be able to tell me it means they all men helped, and you should be able to easily tell me that the reason it means they all men helped is because of the waw at the end. That refers to they all men. Alright, that's the pronoun. Likewise with nasarat, nasarata, nasarna, nasarna, nasarta, etc. etc. Alright, today we're going to cover the fi'l mudari'. Now if we were to compare the two, the fi'l mudari' is much more difficult than the fi'l madi. So I'm giving you a heads up from before that the fi'l mudari' is more difficult than the fi'l madi. However, because you already know the form of the table, where you have 6 conjugations, the first 6 are third person, he, they, she, they, singular, dual, plural, singular, dual, plural. The second 6 are second person, you. Once again, singular, dual, plural, with the first 3 being masculine, second 3 being feminine. And the last 3, or the last 2 of one, are first person, I and we. Because you already learnt this table and you already understand this table well, the fi'l mudari will be in the exact same format. It's just that what we add on will be different. Now in the fi'l madi, we added on a pronoun to the end. The fi'l mudari is a bit different in the sense that in the fi'l mudari, not only do we add on a pronoun at the end, but likewise in the beginning of that verb, we're also going to add on an extra letter. And if you remember, I told you a long time ago that the way we understand that a verb is a fi'l mudari is if we have an extra hamza, ta, ya, or noon in the beginning. If we have an extra hamza, ta, ya, or noon in the beginning, we mentioned this to you quite a few lessons, quite some time ago, that this is how you differentiate a fi'l mudari', or this is one of the methods of differentiating a fi'l mudari' from other verbs. So we've mentioned that previously. Another point which is extremely important to keep in mind, which you mentioned previously, was the fact that the fi'l mudari' is the imperfect verb. What that means is it can refer to the present tense or the future tense. So in English, we have the past tense, we have the present tense, we have the future tense. He did, he is doing, he will do. In Arabic, you have madi, which is fa'ala, or nasara, he helped, he did. Then you have the mudari', which is yansuru, which can mean he is helping, and it can also mean he will help. So how do you differentiate? You have to use context. And I've already given you sufficient examples for this, so we don't have to repeat this again and again. But just keep in mind when you translate the fi'l mudari' in your tables, you have to keep in mind that it can refer to both. It can refer to both the present tense and it can also refer to the future tense. That is crucial to understand, or in understanding the fi'l mudari'. All right? Especially in terms of translation. Now that we've learned, or we've preempted these two discussions, which you're already aware of, alhamdulillah, we're going to explain to you, prior to actually studying the fi'l mudari', a general rule in the Arabic language which is extremely helpful. And that general rule in the Arabic language is that the scholars of Arabic, when they want us to understand verbs, they give us a default verb. That default verb is a verb called fa'ala. Now, why do they make this the default? The reason they make this the default is because fa'ain lam actually means to do. Like the most intrinsic or the most pure verb you can possibly have, a verb is an action, right? A verb is an action word. So the most pure verb you could have is to do. All right, so they make fa'ala the default. In making fa'ala the default, they will be helping you understand all other verbs as well. How is this the case? So the way the scholars of the Arabic language explain verbs is that we have root letters. And I've already mentioned too that we have root letters, and these root letters can be rearranged and repositioned to attain different meanings. Initially, when I mentioned this in the first or second lesson, we simply touched upon it. I never explained what was going on behind the scenes to you. Today we'll cover a bit of that before entering into the Mudari. We have in every Arabic word, we have at least three root letters. So you're going to have one, two, and three. You'll have up to at least three root letters, and you can have more root letters as well. Obviously, we're going to begin with three root letters. Okay. When we have the three root letters, we're going to take any word we had, any word we have, and we're going to put on the pattern of fa'ala. Why? Because this will help us understand the first root letter, which we're going to refer to as the fa position. So if you take nasara, for instance, which means to help, we take na, sa, ra. Notice over here you have, once again, three root letters. The fa position corresponds to nun, which is the first letter in nasara. The ain position, again, why do we refer to it as the ain position? Because like I told you, the default in Arabic is fa ain lam. We're going to make this verb over here the default verb to understand all other verbs. The ain position corresponds to the sad, na, sa. And finally, the lam position, okay, corresponds to the ra, na, sa, ra. So if I was to give you a verb, for example, nasara, and I ask you what's the fa position, you place it in the same pattern as fa'ala, and then you see what does noon fall in line with. So if I say fa'ala, put nasara in the same pattern, noon is in line with fa, therefore noon is the fa position. Fa'ala, nasara, sad is in line with ayn, therefore sad is the ayn position. Fa'ala, nasara, ra is in line with lam, therefore ra is the lam position. So in this method, you've understood the different positions in which the root letters are arranged. Okay. In Arabic, we refer to this as the fa kalima, the ain kalima, and the lam kalima. You can call this the first root letter, the second root letter, and the third root letter. Okay. Or that's not really Arabic. That's actually Urdu. But you can refer to it as the fa position, the ain position, and the lam position. Let's take another example because this is extremely important and this will help you understand the language a lot better. If I was to give you, for example, the verb ضرب, ضرب. Can someone take this for me and explain to me what the fa position is, what the ain position is, and what the lam position is? So what's this? How do we do this? It's very simple, right? Put ضرب on the same pattern as fa'ala. Once we do that, we say dad is in line with fa. So therefore, dad is the fa position. Ra is in line with ain. Therefore, that's the ain position. Ba is in line with lam. Therefore, that's the lam position. And you can do this with any verb. Right? Let's take another verb which we've learned previously. Fataha, which means to open. So over here, what is fa? Fa is the fa position. Why is fa the fa position? Because it's in line with fa, the fa from fa'ala. That's why it's the fa position. Ta is the second letter over here. It's the ain position. And ha is the lam position. So this is quite easy, right? You've understood this. It's simply a matter of putting the verb on the pattern of fa'ala and then determining what's first. That's the fa position. What's the second root letter? That is the ain position. And what's the last root letter? That is the lam position. Now, if you look at this, if you just look at fa'ala and nasr, you're going to think to yourself, well, this is quite easy, right? Why are we learning this? The reason this is helpful is because when we give you patterns, remember I told you Sarf is about learning patterns, right? When I give you patterns later on, in order to understand patterns, you need to know these positions. For example, if I tell you, take nasara and put it on the pattern of fa'ilun. Now you're going to say nasara is one word, fa'ala is a different word. How do I put nasara on the pattern of fa'ilun? But because you understood that noon is the fa position, you'd say na. And because you know that sad is the ain position, you'd say sli. And because you know finally that ra is the lam position, you'd say run. So you notice fa'ilun nasirun, right? Notice I put the fa position, which is the noon, is completely similar to fa. The I and Sad are completely similar, and the Run and Lun are completely similar. And you'll also notice when you do this that, wait a minute, there's actually an extra letter in here. There's an extra alif because that alif, that letter over there is none of the positions. It's not the fa position, it's not the ain position, and it's not the lam position. So what's that alif doing is part of the pattern. And that pattern of fa'ilun gives you a meaning. The meaning it gives you is the meaning of what we refer to as the active participle, meaning it's the noun that does that it's the noun that is the doer. So fa'ilun means the doer. Nasirun means the helper. If I was to say, for instance, daribun, it would mean the hitter because you put it on the pattern of fa'ilun. If I was to say fatihun, it would mean the opener. Notice how you put on this pattern and you're achieving these meanings by the exact same root letters. And how do you put them in the correct pattern? By understanding fa position, ain position, and lam position. So this is extremely important. And because we're going to be accessing this quite a bit in the fi'l mudari, as well as the fi'l al-amr. Not so much in the fi'l mudari, but more so in the fi'l al-amr. I want to preempt this from now, so it's in the back of your minds for when we move on, bi'idhnillah. Alright. Now, we have to add on the mudari letters. So whenever you want to make a fi'l mudari, you're going to take your fa'ala or your nasara, right? Let's take our nasara. So I have noon, sad, ra. Again, these are my root letters. Nasara, these are my root letters. So I take my mudari. The first step is to add on a mudari letter, or a better way to refer to this is a letter of mudara'a, a letter of a mudari. These are referred to as the huruf al-mudara. There are 4 letters that need to come, that must come in the beginning of any mudari verb. And those 4 letters I taught you previously are hamza, ta, ya, nun. Hamza, ta, ya, nun. You have to have one of these in the beginning of any mudari verb. So in nasara, if someone asks, this is also an interesting question, if someone asks you that doesn't nasara have a nun in the beginning, so is that a mudari or is that a maldi? So you would tell them after learning fa position, ain position, and lam position, you would tell them that yes, nasara has a noon in the beginning, but that noon is not extra. When we say we have to add on a letter of mudari, it means you need to add a letter before the root letters. And because you know that noon in nasara is the fa position, you know this based on fa'ala, nasara, now you'll tell me that that noon is actually a root letter. It's not an extra letter because the fa, ain, and lam position are root letters. So noon, sad, and ra are all root letters. Therefore, over there, does not in nasara, we don't actually have an extra noon in the beginning. We just have the root letter noon. When we say we're going to add on a harful mudara'a, we have to make sure we bring another noon in the beginning. Notice how we added on an extra noon. Okay, we have to bring another ya in the beginning. So nasara becomes yan. And nasara becomes nan. Nasara becomes an. Notice you're adding on a letter in the beginning. Now, whenever you add on one of the 4 letters to the beginning, and what are these 4 letters? Hamza, ta, ya, and noon. Okay, in fact, we'll change the order here to make it easier to understand. Ya, ta, hamza, and noon. Okay, when we're going to add these letters on in the beginning, what's going to happen is the fa kalima. What's the fa kalima? Fa'ala, nasara. In this case, it's a noon. That fa kalima, which is the first root letter, that will receive a sukoon. So once I add on, for instance, for example, I take my fi'l mudari, which is nasara, right? A fi'l madi, nasara. I want to add on, let's assume I want to add on a ya. Once I add on a ya, okay, ya maftuha, what's going to end up happening is what was initially the fa kalima, what still is the fa kalima, it's the fa kalima, noon, nasara, fa'ala, that will receive a sukoon. So in the fi'l madi, the fa kalima always has a fatha. Nasara, daraba. Throughout the entire table. Read the entire table and you'll notice in the fi'l madi, in the 3-lettered fi'l madi, the fa kalima always has a fatha. But what happens in the fi'l mudari? The fa kalima now has a sukoon. So that's important to keep in mind, right? Once you add on this extra letter of mudara'a, the fa kalima will receive a sukoon. So once you add on either a ya, ta, hamza, or noon, you say yan, nasara becomes yan. All right. For example, daraba becomes yad. Notice how we give sukoon to the dad. Fataha becomes yaf. Notice how we give sukoon to the fa. And like with the rest of the huruf al-mudara'a, nasara becomes tan, an, nan. All right. After this, we have to change the pattern of the verb. And this is where the fi'l mudari gets difficult. So you know that you add on a letter to the beginning of the mudari, one of these four. And when you add on this letter, what happens to the fa position, which is the first letter after this, is going to receive a sukoon. Okay, that much is simple. Beyond this, things get a tad bit complicated, which we'll teach you soon, bi'idhnillah. Just keep one thing in mind. I'm going to mention this right now to make things easier. This is not some sort of rule that you have to memorize. It's just to make things easier for you. Generally speaking, these four letters we have in front of us, these are signs. They're not pronouns. The pronouns are going to come at the end of the verb. Just like in nasaru, we added a pronoun to the end of the verb. These over here, the ya, ta, hamza, nun, these are signs. Why do I say they're signs? They're signs because they're not the doer, they indicate. They indicate which form of the verb we have at hand. So whenever you have a ya at the beginning of the verb, it can either indicate, keep this in mind, it can either indicate that that verb form is ghaib. What is ghaib? Third person. Okay. Or it can indicate, or we'll just leave it at this. The ya will indicate that the verb form is ghaib. If you have a ya at the beginning, just know right off the bat that will be a ghaib verb. That doesn't mean every single ghaib, third person, which is the first six, third person is the first six, right? He, they, she, they. It doesn't mean every third person will have a ya at the beginning. I'm just saying one of the meanings ya indicates is third person. Okay. Ta is a bit difficult. Why? Because ta can indicate two things. Ta can either indicate hadir, which is second person. Hadir is second person. Now, second person, right, would be you. All right, the second six. Hadir, the ta can either indicate second person, or, and this is important, or it can indicate feminine. That can also indicate mu'annath. That the verb is not masculine, it's actually feminine. So that can indicate both. It can either indicate hadir, or it can indicate ta'neeth, which is feminine. Okay. Hamza and Noon are quite simple. Hamza and Noon are quite easy because Hamza indicates al-mufrad or al-mutakallim, which is first person, al-mufrad. Right, singular, first person, so I. The Hamza indicates I, singular first person. Again, this is not the pronoun. I've taught you this before. I've told you this before. The pronoun we have to add on towards the end. We cannot say the letter in the beginning is the pronoun. So the yata, hamza, nun in the beginning are not the pronouns. They're not the files. They're simply indications to help you understand and differentiate between which conjugation is being used. And the noon over there, that noon at the end, it also is from mutakallim. That noon, which is in the beginning of the mudari. So nan suru, naf alu, nab ribu, naf tahu. That noon and all of those is for mutakallim. It's for first person, so it's not you or they or he. It's going to be I or we, but this noon is for al-muthanna, which is dual, slash al-jam', which is plural. Okay, so it means we. It indicates the meaning of we. So why am I mentioning this? Because later on you're going to see that you're going to add on many of these huruf towards the beginning. It may get a bit difficult to understand exactly what the meaning is based on the harf in the beginning alone. Based on the huruf al-mudari in the beginning, it'll be difficult. But once you understand the pattern in its entirety, it'll be easier. I've just mentioned this as a tip. You don't have to memorize this. And if it confuses you more, you can just scratch it altogether. If it's easier for you to just memorize the table without actually thinking too much about this, that's fine as well. But if this makes things easier for you, as you're going to see soon, bi'idhnillah, then that's even better. All right. Number 3, you're going to have to adjust the pattern of that verb. Because once you add on the ya, ta, hamza, noon, you have to adjust the pattern. I've already given you an example of this. Once you add on hamza, ta, ya, or noon, the fa position needs to get a sukoon. So initially the fa position in the madi, nasara, daraba, fataha, right? They all had a fatha. But the moment you add on a hamza, ta, ya, or noon, you're going to adjust the pattern. You have to give the fa position a sukoon. Okay, what happens to the ayn position? What happens? So we covered the fa position. Now fa position will receive a sukoon. So let's try applying this to make things easier for yourselves before we actually memorize, inshallah. Okay, we're going to take about 3 verbs. Okay, this is actually the first time teaching the mudari like this. Lakin bi'idhnillah, it'll be good. Okay, we're going to take 3 verbs. We have nasara, we have daraba, and we also have fataha. Let's take fataha. Okay. Nasara, daraba, and fataha. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add on the harful mudari. We're going to add on all 4. We're going to add on all 4 one by one. So first we begin with ya. So once we add on the ya to the beginning of nasara, let's just change the color for that ya. Okay. Ya maftuha. What's going to happen to that noon? I told you the fa position changes from fatha to sukoon. So that happens in yan. And let's assume we add on a ta. It will also happen over there. If you say 10, over there as well, the fa position, which is the noon over here, will change to a sukoon. Likewise, the exact same will happen if you add on a hamza. Instead of ana sara, it becomes an. Becomes an. And finally, when you add on the noon as well, it will become nan. So you'll notice over here, the fa position will receive a sukoon. And this is the exact same with yadribu and yaftahu. Yad, tad, ad, and nad. Okay. And then we can just add on our dad with the sukoon afterwards. Okay. So same thing with fataha, yaf, taf, af, and naf. And then we can just add on our fa with the sukoon. Okay, so the fa position clearly, as you can see in front of you, it received a sukoon in this specific verb. All right. What happens to the ayn position? The ayn position is detailed and it's difficult. Why is it difficult? Because the ayn position can get any haraka. It can get fatha, kasra, or dhamma. So it can be yansu, it can be yadri, it can be yaftah. Okay? Notice how the yansu, that sad over there has a dhamma. Yadri, the ra has a kasra. Yaftah, the ta has a fatha. Again, these are all the ayn positions. So how will you determine this? We're going to teach you this later on bi'idhnillah. For now, we're just going to tell you exactly what they receive. So when I give you the fi'l mudari, I will tell you what the ayn position has. Alright, and you have to make sure you follow that throughout the entire table. So yan, the sad specifically will have, again, this is our ayn position now, the sad will have a fatha in the verb yansuru. Okay. The ra in yadri will have a kasra. The ra in yadri will have a kasra. Alright. And the ta in yafta, again, which is the ta is the ayn position. Fataha, fa'ala. Always make sure you put them in the same pattern. That will have a fatha. Now, how do you determine this? There is a way. You can learn how to determine this, and we're going to teach you this later on, bi'idhnillah. For now, because our purpose right now is not to actually determine this, it's just to memorize the table. So this is the first step. For this reason, I'm just going to tell you what they have instead of teaching you how to determine it. Later on, bi'idhnillah, we'll teach you exactly how you determine this, when it'll have a fatha, when it'll have a kasra, when it'll have a dhamma, when you'll be forced to look in a dictionary. We will teach you all that, bi'idhnillah. For now, I just want you to understand the concept, okay? And then memorize the table, inshallah. The last letter is where things get interesting. The lam position is where things get interesting. In all these examples I've put in front of you, we're just going to put the lam position with the dhamma on top. Ansuru, nansuru, okay? Yadribu, tadribu, adribu, nadribu. Notice that we're just putting the lam position with a dhamma on top. Yaftahu, taftahu, aftahu, and naftahu. I just put the lam position towards the end and I put a dhamma on top. However, the mudari table gets interesting because I told you towards the beginning of our lesson, now we're going to have to add on pronouns to the end of these. Remember I said this. I said that we're going to have these verbs, yansuru, tansuru, ansuru, nansuru. We need to add on pronouns to the end of these verbs. And that's why I told you it gets interesting. So how do we add on pronouns if the verb is a dual? If the verb, these are just general outlines. We're going to memorize the table afterwards. If the verb is a dual, you're going to add on an alif noon. So yansuru will become yansurani. If the verb is a dual, you're going to add on whether it's masculine or feminine. You're going to add on an alif noon. Yansuru will become yansurani. All right. If the verb is plural masculine, you're going to add on E wow noon. Now when you're adding on a wow, obviously that letter before it needs to have dhamma. So when we added on alif, we said yansu rani. We give the ra a fatha because we're adding on an alif at the end. If we're adding on a wow noon, we're going to give the ra or the last letter a dhamma. Yansu runa. Yadri buna. Yaftahuna. Alright? Because these are plural. Plural masculine to be exact. If the verb happens to be plural feminine, you're going to make the lam position sakina, you give it a sukoon, and then you add on a noon maftuha. So let me just explain that to you once again. You have, for instance, for feminine, tansuru, yeah? You're going to make the ra sakina, it becomes tansur, and then you add on a noon maftuha at the end, tansurna, tadribna, and taftahna. Now, obviously, it's difficult right now. These are just some general guidelines. Now that you've understood this general outlook of the fi'l mudari, now let's actually memorize the tables one by one. We're going to memorize each conjugation so it's very easy for you to apply everything we've learned so far, bi'idhnillah. Alright. In the table, we always begin with the ghaib. What do we begin with? We begin with the ghaib, which is the third person. And when beginning with the ghaib, we're going to start off with yansuru, singular masculine. We're going to begin with yansuru, singular masculine. So I'm going to write this to the side of your table, bi'idhnillah. Over here. Yansuru is our first conjugation we're taking a look at. Let me see where exactly I can write this. Let's write this over here. All right. Yansuru. What does yansuru mean? Yansuru means he, one male, is helping or will help. Yansuru means he, one male, is helping or will help. And I've already explained to you that the fi'l mudari can encompass both meanings of the present tense and the future tense. Context will decide which meaning is intended. Yansuru, he when male is helping or will help. Alright. If I want to dualize this, what do? I add on an alif noon. So yansuru becomes yan surani. Yansuru becomes yan surani. They two males are helping or will help. Yansurani. And finally, if I want to pluralize this, I add on, what do I add on? A waw noon. Yansuruna. So yansuru becomes yansuruna. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. You have to read this with me to get the hang of it. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Yansuru, he one male is helping or will help. Yansurani, they two males are helping or will help. Yansuruna, they three males are helping or will help. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Okay. Now, these are the first three conjugations in the fi'l mudari. And I've told you before that in the in any verb table, the first six conjugations are third person. That's why it's he, they. It's not you. It's not you one male. It's not you two males. It's he, they. All right. That's important to keep in mind. The second thing that's important to keep in mind is the fact that the first three conjugations are masculine. The first three conjugations are masculine. Remember, we told you that from the first six, or from every six, in fact, the first three will be masculine, the next three will be feminine. So now we've covered the masculine side. Yansuru, he one male is helping or will help. Yansurani, they two males are helping or will help. Yansuruna, they three plus males are helping or will help. Now let's look at the feminine side. Again, we're still in third person. It's still she, they. It's not you, because it's still third person. We move on to tansuru. Tansuru. Notice I told you that ta can indicate femininity. So over here, ta is not indicating you, which is second person. Over here, ta is indicating femininity. It's not he one male, it's she one female. Okay, tansuru. tansurani. All right. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani. Once again, yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani. Now we've covered feminine singular. She one male, she one female is helping or will help. Tansurani, they two females are helping or will help. Now we have to cover feminine plural third person. Feminine plural third person is interesting because feminine plural third person has a ya. It doesn't have a ta. In feminine second person and feminine third person singular and dual, you had ta, right? Tansuru, tansurani. But feminine plural third person actually has a ya. So instead of ten, it's going to revert back to yan. And at the end, what did it tell you is the pronoun that indicates femininity? Is that nun maftuha. It's that nun with the fatha at the end. So yan tansuru, feminine becomes yansurna. What does it become? Yansurna. And that's a bit different, isn't it? Maybe it's a bit different, but you're going to get the hang of it, inshallah. So once again, yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. All males. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. That's very easy. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. All right, now let's head into the female section. Tansuru, she one female is helping or will help. Tansurani, notice the alif. They two females are helping or will help. Yansurna, they three plus females are helping or will help. Once again, yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. So just memorize the later three. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. From the beginning, yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. Notice the reverting back to the ya, because ya can indicate, it just indicates ghaib. So this over here is still third person, it's still they. It's still they, it's not you. All right. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. Once again, yansuru, he one male is helping or will help. Yansurani, they two males are helping or will help. Yansuruna, they three plus males are helping or will help. Tansuru, she one female is helping or will help. Tansurani, they two females are helping or will help. Yansurna, they three plus females are helping or will help. How many conjugations have you covered? 6. These are the first 6. These are all ghaib. Ghaib means third person. He, they, she, they, as opposed to you. The second 6, like I told you in the Maldi, will be second person. Meaning now we're going to say you. Now, if you remember, I told you one of the meanings that can indicate is second person. So the next 6 conjugations, all 6 of them will not begin with ya. They're all going to begin with that. All of the upcoming conjugations, the next 6 conjugations, will all begin with da. So once again, we take our first singular masculine dual, singular masculine second person, tansuru. So tansuru means you one male. Tansuru means you one male helped. Tansurani, notice how we dualized it by adding an alif noon. Tansurani, you two males helped. Tansuruna, you 3 plus males helped. Okay? So once again, tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna. You one male helped, you 2 males helped, you 3 plus males helped. Now over here, there's 2 things too, which are important to keep in mind. Number 1, how do we differentiate between masculine third person, he, they, and masculine second person, you, they, you? It's that ya and the noon. Yansuru is he one male. Tansuru is you one male. Yansurani is they 2 males. Tansurani is you 2 males. Yansuruna is they 3 males, or they 3 plus to be exact. Tansuruna is you 3 plus males. Notice how that ta over here is indicating second person. That's how you differentiate between it being third person, he, they, as opposed to you. All right, that's number 1. Number 2, and this is also important, what did you realize? Look at the first 2 conjugations over here. You're going to realize that the first 2 conjugations, which is tansuru and tansurani, they're the exact same as feminine, singular, and dual third person. Notice how feminine, if you're referring to she one female, you say tansuru. If you're referring to you one male, you'd say tansuru. If you're referring to they 2 females, you'd say tansurani. If you're referring to you two males, you'd still say tansurani. So what do you notice? You notice they're the exact same. This is important to keep in mind. Because how will you differentiate now between tansuru meaning she one female versus tansuru meaning you one male? Context. Context will help you differentiate that over here tansuru means you one male. If I'm talking to a man and I say hal tansuruni, will you help me? Over here, no one will think to themselves that tansuru means she one female. Because I'm not talking about a female, I'm talking to a man. But if I'm telling a story, and I say Fatima tansiru fulan wa allan. Fatima is helping so and so. So over here you clearly understand because I'm talking about a female, which is referring back to Fatima, that is not you one male, rather it's she one female. So I'm just pointing out to you that the verb over here is repeating, but context will help you determine exactly what's intended. Is it she one female versus you one male that's intended? Or is it she two, they two females versus you two males that is intended? Once again, let's repeat this. Tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna. Going back to the beginning. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. Those are all ghaib. Third person. He, they, she, they. Yansuru, tansuru, afwan, tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna. You one male are helping or will help. You two males are helping or will help. You three plus males are helping or will help. Once again from the beginning. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. Tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna. Now we have to learn the female version. The female version, singular feminine, second person is interesting. Over here we're going to add on a ya noon. So you're going to say tan su rina. Notice how you added on a ya noon. Tansurina is you single female. You single female are helping or will help. Dual is the same as the masculine dual. Tansurani. Context will tell you if you're referring to you two females or you two males or they two females. Tansurani. And feminine is tansurna. Remember feminine plural I told you is you add on a noon maftuha at the end. So you say tan in the beginning. And towards the end you're going to make that lam kalimat dara sakina. And you add on a noon maftuha at the end. Tansurina, tansurani, tansurna. Tansurina, repeat it with me. Tansurani, tansurna. Tansurina, you and female are helping or will help. Tansurani, you two females are helping or will help. Tansurna, you all females are helping or will help. Tansurina, tansurani, tansurna. Tansurina, tansurani, tansurna. So once again, how do we differentiate between you all females are helping or will help versus they all females are helping or will help? Notice how they all females has a ya at the beginning, yan surna. Whereas you all females has a ta at the beginning because that ta indicates that it's hadir, it's second person. Alright, tansurna, you all females are helping or will help. Now we've covered the 12 first conjugations within the table. Let's repeat this again. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. Tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna. Tansurina, tansurani, tansurna. Tansurina, tansurani, tansurna. All right. Now I'm going through this at a quick pace, but when you memorize, try memorizing 3 at a time. Yansuru, he one male is helping or will help. Yansurani, they two males are helping or will help. Yansuruna, they three plus males are helping or will help. Tansuru, she one female is helping or will help. Tansurani, they two females are helping or will help. Yansurna, they all females are helping or will help. Tansuru, you one male are helping or will help. Tansurani, you two males are helping or will help. Tansuruna, you three plus males are helping or will help. Tansurina, you one female are helping or will help. Tansurani, you two females are helping or will help. Tansurna, you all females are helping or will help. If that was too fast, repeat it and slow it down a bit. All right. Tamam. We have two conjugations left. I and we, which is very easy as always. Ansuru and nansuru. Ansuru means I'm helping or will help. And nansuru, we are helping or will help. With this, you've covered the table. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. Tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna. Tansurina, tansurani, tansurna. Ansuru, nansuru. Okay. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. Tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna. تنصرين تنصراني تنصرنا أنصر ننصر. Let's repeat that again. ينصر ينصران ينصرون تنصر تنصران ينصرن تنصر تنصران تنصرون تنصرين تنصران تنصرن أنصر ننصر. Once again. ينصر ينصران ينصرون تنصر تنصران ينصرن تنصر تنصران تنصرون تنصرين تنصران تنصرن أنصر ننصر. With this, you've understood the table. And like I said, memorizing groups of three, it'll make it much easier for yourselves because three is where the gender will normally change. Okay, keeping in mind that the first six are third person, the second six are second person. So translation will change from he, they, she, they to you. We have covered the table now. And I told you when you memorize the table, if the rules are going to complicate it more, don't worry about those guidelines I mentioned in the beginning. Just memorize the table as is. Memorize the table as is. The guidelines are just here to help you understand how the table is made and how it works. What I'm going to mention now has to do with the doer in the table. Remember I said that that letter in the beginning, the ya in the beginning, the ta in the beginning, the noon in the beginning, and the hamza in the beginning is not the doer. It's not the fa'il. It's simply indicating the form. It is simply indicating the form. So now the question comes, where is the fa'il? So you remember in the fi'l madi, there were two places where we assumed the fa'il. Fa'ala or nasara and nasarat. These two places were where we assumed the fa'il. The rest of the table towards the end, the fa'il was always apparently mentioned. Nasara had the alif, nasaru had the waw, nasarna had the noon. That noon maftuh, remember noon maftuha? Feminine plural. Okay? The tatu matun, the titu matunna, the tu dana. The doer was always mentioned at the end. In the fi'l mudari, there are 5 places we have to assume the fa'il. How many places? 5. Aside from that, the doer will be mentioned at the end. So what are the 5 places we have to assume the fa'il? It's very easy. Think of the 5 conjugations which don't have anything extra added on. So yansuru, all right, singular, masculine, third person, it doesn't have anything extra added on. So if it doesn't have anything extra added on, we have to pull out a hidden huwa because we're referring to he one male, right? So over here you'd pull out a hidden huwa because huwa means he one male. Tansuru, which is conjugation number 4, singular, feminine, third person, which means she one female is helping or will help. You don't have anything extra added on towards the end. So because nothing extra is added on, what do we have to pull out? We have to pull out over here a hidden hiya. Why is it hiya? Because you're referring to she one female, third person. How do you say she in the Arabic language? The pronoun for she, it's hiya. So if you're referring to a male pronoun, you say huwa, third person. If you're referring to a female pronoun, you would say hiya, third person. All right, let's move down. Now we move on to second person. In second person, we have tansuru again. Nothing extra added on. But this tansuru over here means you one male. So when we're using the verb for you one male, I'm not going to pull out hiya. If someone was to say tansuru, which means you one male over here in this scenario, and pull out a hiya, we would tell him that's incorrect. Why is it incorrect? Because hiya means she. So yeah, if you're referring to conjugation for she when female is helping, over there you can pull out a hiya. But right now we're in second person. If you're talking to one male and you're saying tansuruni, will you help me, or are you helping me, or you are helping me, you're talking to him. Over here you wouldn't pull out a hiya, you would pull out an anta. Because like you learned in the fi'l, in the damir pronoun, in the damir tables, anta means you one male. Anta means you one male. So tansuru means you one male. Anta, the hidden anta within tansuru means you one male. All right, now look at the remaining 5 conjugations in the second person. Tansurani, tansuruna, tansuruna, tansurina, tansurani, tansurna. You'll notice in all of these, something extra has been added on. In all of them. So because something extra has been added on, we're not pulling out anything from here. The pronoun is apparently in front of us. The last 2 places we have to pull something out are in ansuru. Nothing extra is added on towards the end. And for that reason, we're going to pull out a hidden ana, because ana means I. And nansuru, nothing extra has been added on at the end. And therefore, we're going to pull out a hidden nahnu, which means we. We're going to pull out a hidden nahnu, which means we. All right, so there's 5 places. We're just going to write them for you to make it easier, where we have to pull out a hidden pronoun. Those 5 places are conjugation number 1. All right. Conjugation number 1, which is yan suru. You're going to pull out a hidden huwa, which means he, one male, is helping or will help. Conjugation number 4, okay, you're going to pull out a hidden hiya. Then suru, you're going to pull out a hidden hiya, which means she, when female, is helping or will help. Okay, conjugation number 7, you're going to pull out a hidden anta. Tansuru, from you're going to pull out a hidden anta, which means you and male are helping or will help. Conjugation number 13, which is towards the end, okay, which is first person. Ansuru, over here we're going to pull out a hidden, okay, ana. And finally, we have nansuru, which is conjugation 14, which is the last conjugation. From here, we're going to pull out a hidden nahnu. So in the Madi, we have 2, fa'al and fa'alat. In the Mudari, we have 5. Yansuru has a hidden huwa, tansuru has a hidden hiya, tansuru conjugation 7, second person has a hidden anta, ansuru has a hidden ana, and nansuru has a hidden nahnu. Yansuru has a hidden huwa, tansuru has a hidden hiya, tansuru, if it refers to you and male, afwan has a hidden anta, ansuru has a hidden ana, and nansuru has a hidden nahnu. All right. The remaining part of the tables, the remaining conjugations, we already have something at the end. And I've already told you, if you want to dualize, what do you add at the end? An alif. So notice in dual, we have the alif at the end. That will become the fa'il. In yansuruna, in plural, we're going to have the waw at the end. That will become the fa'il. Okay, in tansurani, once again, feminine dual, we have an alif at the end. That will become the fa'il. In yansurna, we have a nun maftuh at the end. That will become the fa'il. Notice how the pronoun is already pulled out for us. We don't have to pull anything out. Tansurani, dual, a second person, you, 2 males, has an alif. Tansuruna, plural masculine, second person, you, all 3, you 3 plus males, has a waw. Tansurina, that's an interesting one. A singular feminine, second person, has a ya. So that means you and female. Tansurini means you and female. That ya indicates you and female. Tansurani is dual. Tansurna, notice the nun maftuha at the end. That is the pronoun of plural feminine. All right. With this, we have covered the fi'l mudari. Now, like I mentioned, it's difficult at first, but you have to practice, you have to memorize. 3 by 3, it'll become easier for you. And keep in mind what exactly is even the meaning of the doer. Is it an apparent pronoun? Or do we have to pull out a hidden huwa? Do we have to pull out a hidden hiya? Do we have to pull out a hidden anta? Do we have to pull out a hidden ana? Do we have to pull out a hidden nahnu? And I've already mentioned to you the 5 conjugations where you'd have to do that. Aside from that, the pronoun is there in front of you at the very end. Make sure you practice so you understand it well. We'll just read it one last time. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. Tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna. Tansurina, tansurani, tansurna. Ansuru, nansuru. And with this, we cover our lesson on the fi'l mudari. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.